Bengals Bears coming up at Soldier Field in week 2. The Bengals did announce their inactives. The inactives for this afternoon are going to be cornerbacks Trey Waynes and Nick McLeod, offensive linemen Fred Johnson and Deontay Smith, defensive tackle Tyler Shelvin, and wide receiver Trenton Irwin. Jeff, it's a really similar group to what we saw a week ago with just the addition of Trenton Irwin to that group.
Yeah, I think it's just another example where Prince is ahead of Fred. They like the way Jackson's coming on. I mean, I think this thing will, it's going to evolve over the course of the season. But the first guy off the bench is we really haven't talked about him much, is Trey Hill. He's probably, if Hopkins has a problem or somebody else has a problem and Hopkins has to move, then, Trey's like probably the first guy off the bench. So, that's one of the reasons they feel so good about their young offensive lineman. A guy like Hill can play a couple spots.
We're having an opportunity to take a look at the Bengals warming up at Soldier Field, and right in front of us, Jeff, is some of the guys in the secondary. And when you look at what the defense was able to do against the Vikings in week 1, what is the key for that unit to kind of build on that performance, especially when you look at not only the secondary but really what they were able to do up front and stopping the run?
Right. We got to look at really our first look at Sean Davis there, the new safety, number 33. I think, Marissa, that it has to been a great boon for them what they did against the run. No team has given up more yards on the ground than the Bengals did from 2018 on. All sorts of ways they got gouged in the run. Zone read, up the middle. I mean, 200-yard rushing games galore since 2019, and it just couldn't continue. And so that's why they dropped nearly $200 million on defense, and that's why they stopped Dalvin Cook on 61 yards. That's a huge thing. Dalvin Cook's a good back. I think you reported right. I think you tweeted right away that was, that's the worst game Cook has had in since 2019. I think so. Yeah. That's a and they're going to have to do it again today with David Montgomery. And they're going to have to, this defense needs, they keep talking about stacking, game on game. This is a big game to stack after the Cook game because Justin Fields is probably going to play more. He's going to play a lot more. He may play half the game. And you know what he's doing? He's running the zone read that they haven't been able to stop. So I think this is a big game for the Bengals mindset. If they can stack 2 of these in a row where, David Montgomery's got, he had the best day rushing by a back for anybody in the league except Mixon. So, and then if they can stop Fields on his own read a couple times, I think to me that's going to be a big boost for them mentally.
Yeah, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Running back David Montgomery was just second to Mixon in rushing yards across the league last week. But Montgomery, dating back to last year, has also found the end zone in 7 straight games. So he's been really active, for the Bears as of late. But when you look at what Joe Mixon was able to do against the Vikings last week, 127 yards on the ground. He was also involved pretty heavily in the passing game. But the Bears as a team held the Rams to just 74 rushing yards in week 1. What is it going to take for Mixon and maybe this offensive line to kind of get going early?
Yeah, I think it's the same mindset, Marissa. And Brian Callahan talked about this last week, too, about, you just cannot have this kid drop back, particularly in an AFC North game. He can't drop back 50, 60 times. I think they realize they cannot expose him. And the run game, it started out rough on Sunday against the Vikings. They're like the Bears. They're a tough, physical, defensive club, and they don't give away yards on the ground. And I thought that was a great lesson what the Bengals did last week. They stuck with it. They just know that Burrow's just coming back. They can't give up on the run, And I thought that was a great lesson in that game. They hung with the run, and they were rewarded with it. Burrow still got sacked 5 times, but it opened up the play-action game for him. So I think a club like the Bears, a lot like the Vikings, they muck it up defensively on the ground. They make it hard for you, but you have to hang with the run. You have to hang with the run. You just can't lay Joe out there, 35, 40 times, in the pass game. So and plus you throw in this is the first game in front of a crowd on the road for him. And you really got to lean on the run game.
Mhm. Well, as you mentioned, we're having a chance to watch Joe Burrow warm up with some of his receivers and tight ends. You said Callahan doesn't want Burrow to throw it 40, 50 times, but he only had 27 attempts last week. Do you anticipate maybe there being a little bit more volume from Burrow, or do you really think that they're going to try to keep, the number of attempts and passes, under 30?
It's a great question. That was the first game Joe's ever not thrown 30 passes. And, you got Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks are two of the better pass rushers in the NFL. So, and you're on the road again. We go back to the sound, to the noise and all that. So, yeah, I think I think there's a yes, I think there's a chance they will try to cut the. Now we'll see how the game goes. Do they get behind? Do they have to throw to stay in the game? So I think that there's a lot of elements to that. But clearly, I think they have the mindset against a defense like this that can rush the passer that they're going to cut down his exposure.
When you look at, the way Joe Burrow was able to kind of spread it out amongst, the offensive talents last week, Jamar Chase winning Pepsi Rookie of the Week after his huge NFL debut. The Bears secondary, Jeff, when you take a look at kind of what they have back there, a deep ball should be there for the Bengals this afternoon. How does this team kind of attack that and really try to hit when those opportunities are there?
Well, yeah, I think, and that's a great question too. Is if you could get a big play in the pass, why run it? But I think, I think play action. They're becoming, I think, more play action oriented, and I think that's how you set up those big plays. The Rams have a great play action game, and look what happened to the Bears. They were awful, but I think they are leery. Whenever you play the Rams, you have to be leery of their run game. And that's what opened that up. So I think it's the same thing. I think obviously Zach Taylor, I'm sure he made a few calls out Los Angeles way to see what worked against the Bears. And, Sean McVay, big play action guy. I think you'll see a little bit of that. I think you'll see a lot of that. I think you'll see a lot more of that. I think you'll see a lot more today of what you saw last Sunday because it worked.
Well, a guy that we haven't really gotten a chance to talk a lot about or really saw much of last week is Tyler Boyd, Jeff. I mean, Jamar Chase went off for 101 yards. T. Higgins, had that first touchdown there in the second quarter. Tyler Boyd was held to just 3 receptions on 32 yards. Is he a guy that we could see maybe be a little bit more involved or maybe see Burrow go to a little bit more often today?
I think it just depends probably what the Bears do. I mean, if they're going to, I'm sure. I think this could be a big day for Boyd because the Bears are going to be leery of the big play. That's what beat them last week. So I think they gladly give up the under route that Boyd the under routes that Boyd does so well on. But I think that's the beauty of having these 3 guys is any one of them can have a 100-yard day on you. And I hate to use the cliche, but it is true. You take what the defense gives you, and that's the thing about Burrow. For such a young quarterback, he doesn't force it. I don't think he says, "Hey, I have to get Chase the ball because he's struggling." I don't think he said that last week. I think he went to the open guy. And the long ball to Chase, he knew what he was going to get. He knew that Chase could beat that guy because he had watched tape of Breeland, and Breeland was a guy that. He liked to play. He liked to play tight, and Joe thought. He'd been thinking about that for a couple of days. I'm sure that if he saw Chase lined up with him, he was taking a shot. So, I think Joe. He took what the defense gave him. So, if they give him Boyd, I think he'll gladly take it. He's in his second. He's playing his 11th game, but when it comes to patience, seems like he's playing his 111th game almost.
It really does feel that way, Jeff. The Bengals placed Ricardo Allen on IR this week, brought in Sean Davis. Is Davis going to be, or do you expect him to kind of be in that rotation? Could we see a little bit more of Brandon Wilson today? Kind of how do you anticipate, not only the safety group looking out there, but kind of also the secondary as a whole?
Yeah, I think Davis will probably. That's why he's active. I think because he'll play some snaps. I don't know how much though. Lou played a lot. Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, played a lot of three safety looks. He played about a quarter of the time. He went with three safeties, but you don't have to replace a safety with a safety. I think Davis will play some. I think probably Brandon Wilson will play some, but I also think maybe you get some linebackers that could also give you some looks back there. Akeem Davis-Gaither could maybe give you a similar type of look that Allen could give you. I think Mike Hilton. I think is he's the kind of guy that could move around a little bit and give you that look. So it just doesn't have to be Davis. It can be they can maybe cover that up with a couple different guys.
You brought up earlier about Justin Fields getting into the game at some point. The Bears, I would expect them to have him in at least before halftime, at the very latest there, Jeff. But how different is it going to be for this defense when you're going up against trying to defend an Andy Dalton-led quarterback versus Justin Fields at quarterback?
Oh, I think, they're two different guys, obviously. Von Bell talked about this earlier in the week. When you see Andy, you're going to get the ball is going to come out of his hand quickly. There's going to be there'll be more stuff from the pocket. When Fields is in there, it's got to look out for the zone read. Zone read, bootleg. So two different guys, and it's really kind of a unique situation that you basically have to compare for two different you have to prepare for two different quarterbacks, which is I'm sure why. Matt Nagy put him in there for those 5 snaps was not so much to beat the Rams, but to make people spend the time to prepare for them. So it's they're going to have to. The thing is, they're so different. There's going to be no mystery. When the guy's out there, it's pretty clear what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and at least obviously the team has some familiarity with Andy Dalton and what he's able to bring to the Bears offense. Andy did speak earlier this week, and there was a little bit more emotion for him last year when he was with the Cowboys playing the Bengals. Not so much this year, kind of just another game on the schedule. But Butch, when you look at matchups and kind of what you're really keeping an eye on this afternoon, I really like the matchup of our defensive line going against the Bears offensive line. I think this could be a big day for not only Larry Ogunjobi, but DJ Reader on the inside. So that's really, something that I'm not only going to be keeping a close eye on, but something that I really think could go favorably for the Bengals. Is there a certain matchup that you're watching a little bit more closely this afternoon?
No, you're exactly right, Marissa. You hit it right on the head. I mean, that's Bengals have to make hay at that spot. Jason Peters, a 39-year-old left tackle, is playing, but he's got a quad. What happens if he goes down early in this thing? The right tackle's Elijah Wilkinson, who's an undrafted free agent. And that's about all they got back there. So I was talking to John Clayton of the NFL guru fame, John Clayton, and he thought the Bears' offensive line was maybe the worst that's been in the league for a couple of years. So that's a good one to watch on. And I also too think the secondary. I think the Bears' corners against Chase and T. Higgins. That's another spot where the Bengals have a chance. If the weakest spot of the Bears is their offensive line, their corners might be next, and so I think that's a spot where Chase and Higgins can make some plays, but obviously they got to make sure that Joe has the time to get the ball downfield.
Well, certainly a lot to watch as the Bengals look to get their first road win of 2021. Hope to make it 2-0 on the season. Bengals and Bears coming up from Soldier Field in Chicago. You can watch all the action on Fox. You can also listen in to Dan Horde and Dave Lapham on the Bengals radio network. Kickoff is set for just after 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning into our TriHealth pregame live stream. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy kickoff coming up just after 1 p.m.
Thanks, Mr. Enjoy it. Very much. Thank you.